Good evening, Brigade. In the Talmud, which is a series of tractates of rabbinical discussions from 200 CE to 600 CE, the rabbis tell a really interesting story of a banquet held by God, whose party members include Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Joshua, and David. And it is custom in Jewish tradition, which we even do today, that though we say a blessing before the meal, we also say a grace after meals. And so at this banquet in the story, God turns to Abraham and says, Abraham, please lead us in the grace after meals, what we call mizumin. And Abraham says, I can't, and gives his reason. God turns to Isaac and says, no, Isaac, lead us in Birkat HaMazon, the grace after meals. Isaac says, I can't, and gives his reason. God turns to Jacob and says, Jacob, no, bench. And Jacob says, I can't. And his example is he married two women. He married two sisters. And in the Torah, that's forbidden, as we see in the book of Leviticus. God turns to Moses and says, Moses, no, bench. And Moses says, I can't. I didn't have the merit to enter into the land of Israel when I was alive and even when I was dead. God turns to Joshua. Joshua too declines. Until God turns to David. And David says, of course I will lead the grace after meals, and recites the verse from Psalms, Kos Yeshuat Asa Uvashem Adonai Akra. I will lift up my cup of salvation, and I'll proclaim the Lord. And it's interesting to me when I read this, and it's interesting because it's actually in the section talking about Passover, which we will say the grace after meals at the Passover Seder as well, that Moses, out of all of them, we call him Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, our teacher in Hebrew, that he, out of all of them, it made no sense that he would step back until you realize the level of humility he had, that while seated at God's table and being asked to lead the grace after meals, even there he needed to decline. He didn't feel like he had the zchut, as we say in the Hebrew, the merit with which to lead the grace after meals. I think that for us is an incredibly powerful lesson as leaders and as future leaders of the power of humility in every moment, what it means, the message it sends, and what it says about who we are. So with that, I ask if you would join me in prayer. Elohei Rachamim, God of compassion, when you asked Moses to go down to Egypt and free the Israelites from Pharaoh's clutches, he begged you to find another for the task. You showed him signs and wonders as proof of your commitment, but even then Moses described his deficiencies in speech and oration and his fear of failure. In his honesty and his humility, you saw a leader you knew who was actually up for the task. Elohim, help us to learn humility when using the gifts that you have bestowed upon us. Guide us to be comfortable in saying, I don't know, rather than answer using a voice of authority when we lack the information behind it. Open our eyes, ears, and our hearts to live our lives by your teaching, Ezohu Chacham Halomed Mikol Adam. Who is wise? One who learns from everyone. May you support us all as we devote ourselves to being leaders with humility, like Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher. Amen.